Well, you know, you can't do it by yourself. And so that's where the luck comes in, is that other people kind of share what you have an enthusiasm about. I mean, I can't run this shop by myself. It's impossible. I need Steve Johnson, I need Larry's, I need all these people to do all the things that we're trying to do. And that's where the luck comes in, that they share the enthusiasm that I have. And because if I were all by myself, I mean, I could barely do anything.
Sailing is a really interesting sport. It's a lifetime activity that you can learn at a young age or an old age. Doesn't make any difference, but it's you and yourself out there, you know, dealing with the wind, the waves, the temperature, stuff. Every time you go out, it's different, and and so there's different challenges each time, and that's what I love about the sport.
What is it about sailing, for example, that is so special? What is it that once you're a sailor, you never stop sailing? You may not have the money and you may not be in the right place, but that sailing experience will never leave you. And there are all sorts of attributes about sailing, and it all depends on your crew, depends on your boat, depends where you're sailing. And when you put all those circumstances, those parameters together, it's amazing how much fun it is. I have so many people come to me and say, Fletcher, I lived here for years and years and years. I race. I live now in the middle of the country in the wheat fields in Nebraska, and I can't do any sailing, and it's driving me crazy. And so that room, I hope, will help anybody who's a docent there or taking people through, is to give them some idea of how important this was to the local community.
A community room dedicated to the history of white bear sailing is being constructed as part of the Boatworks Commons, being built on the old site of Johnson Boatworks on the shore of White Bear Lake.
Well, sailing has been a big part of White Bear's history going back into the 1880s. All of the development of the racing scows that we sail here basically took place in White Bear. There was Ramaley Boatworks, Amundsen Boatworks, Johnson Boatworks, Peterson Boatworks, you know, all that stuff that was right there that got us started. In addition, the Inland Lakes Yachting Association was formed at White Bear Lake, so there's a long, storied history that we would like to see preserved and not just sort of die off.
Mark Zather and I've known each other for a number of years. He's interested in old boats. He has an old sea boat himself. When the opportunity, he very cleverly kept a 35 by 40 foot room in the new apartment building as city property. And he wanted to use that room to celebrate the heritage of boat building in White Bear Lake over the last 150 years. And he said, Fletcher, would you be interested in doing that? And I said, I would be very much interested in doing that. So that's how I got involved.
The community room is meant to be a place where the origins of that site or the earlier history of that site are told. And so through the boat builders' stories and the Johnson family in particular, but much larger with greater context than that, we're trying to show photos and the actual construction of a boat, which is exciting, and be able to have the community still get a taste of what took place on that spot for so long. So as the Historical Society, we've of course been advocating for some sort of history there because it's an incredibly significant place for us. But beyond that, trying to provide whatever resources we have as far as photographs or plans from the Johnson Boatworks collection that we have and other information. So it's been a fun process.
As part of the room, an old Johnson Seaboat is being restored to become a permanent display.
Well, Angie and Jason Brown gave us this boat, and somebody had, I think, virtually given it to them for resale. But most of the time, these older boats, this is a 1973 Johnson, and it was taken care of moderately well, but not completely well. And so there's inevitable, in a boat that old, there's inevitable rot here and there. And so we turned the boat over and we cut it in half, and then we began to rebuild the bottom so that it's beautiful. If you want to crawl underneath here, you will see how beautiful it is. And then we flipped the boat over, put a new deck on it, new moldings, varnished everything, and have created, and Steve will show you, I think, what he's done with the bow, creating it so you can look into the boat. So we've got an open place in the boat, which I think will help people understand the construction of the boat.
Fletcher Driscoll, a man with a long history of fixing sailboats on the lake, has been tasked with leading the restoration.
I began to draw on the building experience I had when we owned the former Johnson Boatworks in the 60s, that decade. And so people began to give us boats, small boats, like X boats or Y boats or C boats. And because people are so generous with their time, they've given us just countless hours of free labor. So we get a boat for virtually nothing, then we rebuild it, put new canvas decks on, new hardware, and then we loan those boats out to people who are fresh out of college or have 2 kids and are penniless at the moment. And it's a good deal for us because the fleets get bigger, and so we have more competition, which is great because all these are good sailors. And it's good for them because they don't have a big financial outlay, which they can't afford.
He has assembled a team with many different skill sets.
They all had interesting careers. Many of them worked for, like John, working as a chemical engineer for 3M. These people are all able, very able. And it's not that the people who come in here don't know anything. They may not know exactly how to repair a boat, but they take direction very fast. I mean, they're smart, they're articulate, and they're motivated. And that's the luck. That's the luck that I have, is that these people are motivated to do good work.
He and his team are dedicated to transforming the boat into a centerpiece.
We're not going to get it back in the fall. It's a permanent installation, and so we're trying to be, as fastidious as we possibly can be. And we've made some changes on this boat that you might not have seen in the original boat, because we just need to upgrade it a little bit because of its long-term use. And Steve will point out what we're doing in the bow so you can look into it, as I mentioned a moment ago. But we're varnishing it, super well, and plugging the bung holes super well, and doing everything just as perfect as you can get. Probably better than a commercial boat.
Attempted to bring it back to the way it was when the boat was built in '73. And we're pretty close to doing it that way. There's trying to find the hardware that was used back in there rather than the more modern stuff. Although at some point you had to go with the modern because the other stuff just didn't exist anymore.
All the fittings that we have that are older, he and this other fellow, Tom Dressen, and a couple other people have remanufactured, so to speak. And so they all look gorgeous now, which allows us to display them to effect. And it's good for the city because we have all these in stock. The city doesn't have to pay for them, which is kind of nice. And we're proud of them. We're proud of them when he gets through with them.
All to preserve a little piece of White Bear Lake history.
I think it allowed people to really realize what this aspect of White Bear has turned out to be. I think most people know that sailing is a big thing here, but they have no idea that there's a 150-year history. They had no idea how big a deal Amundsen was, or Johnson, and the phases that each of those companies went through, and who was instrumental in those companies. And that's what we're trying to dramatize.